Hello, Abigail here with the astrology and tarot energy reading for the new moon in Leo. This new moon is on Thursday, the 24th of July, 2025, and is at 7:08 a.m. EST. This is a really big one. Firstly, this is kind of the solar heavy lunar moment of the year. We only get one, depending on the astrology. Generally, we only get one new moon in Leo, and it has a lot of connection to the two full moons before and after. So the Capricorn full moon that we had over on the 10th of July, and then on the 8th, we're going to have an Aquarius full moon. And both of those are Saturn ruled. And this moon is trine Saturn. So this is a really intense, heavy period of a month because there's 2 weeks between each of these events with that little beautiful new moon in Leo right in the center. This also draws in the direct themes of the full moon in Capricorn and the full moon in Aquarius, because with those, the ruler is going to be our lovely Saturn in Aries, but it's not really connected by degree or by sign. However, it being the ruler, it draws in everything, and Saturn in Aries is conjunct Neptune. It is sextile Gemini, the Uranus Gemini. It is, also connected to and sextile to that Pluto, as well as trine that Uranus and Gemini. So all of this stuff is kind of coming into play, and this new moon in Leo is where it is directly impacting everything, which does one of two things. It one kind of allows us more tangible, hands-on um, investigation, whereas with the other one, we were kind of dealing with a lot of frustration and stuff in periphery. And this is the moment to kind of get into the heart of things, very Leo, and to sit with these really big astrological events and moments. It also is a reminder that all of these, besides Pluto, these large transiting bodies like Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn, are all heading out of the signs that they have set into recently. By the time we are out of 2025 and will not go back into them until 2026. I think the last one to go back into their sign is Uranus in April, around like I think the 21st. So this moment is bigger and more magnified even than a typical solar blast with this, Leo moment. So know that this is a big moment. Also, the moon is opposed to Pluto. So themes about secrets and death and the crumbling of things and things that we just don't not like to talk about or investigate, discomfort comes to the surface. I think it can be very positive, but it requires us to step into our discomfort and to face facts and to face the events of the past. We do get, however, a lovely ability to participate this time, unlike unlike last time we had a new moon, which would have been the Cancer new moon, which would have been square Neptune and Saturn. We get a nice trine. So there's this free flowing energy between the sun and the moon and Neptune and Saturn. And I think it's going to help us feel more secure in setting boundaries and, in dealing with reality, very Neptune as it is. I will say Neptune and Saturn are retrograde. So there's a lot of reprocessing and reintegrating going on. Um, these aren't going to be new topics. These are going to be old topics that we are revisiting and connecting with, especially with how new this transit is. This is the first time we get to kind of sit back and go, oh, this is what's been happening. Not to mention, we have Mercury in Leo retrograde. And another connection to that full moon in Capricorn is that while Mercury is retrograde, it is at the same degree as that full moon in Capricorn. It's at 13 degrees direct, but in the shadow period with the full moon, and it's going to be 13 degrees retrograde for this one. So there's also this underlying moment where we get to kind of really fully reconnect and deal with these frustrations and upset that we have kind of been struggling with the past 2 weeks in a more hands-on, direct, face forward with the facts in hand, seeing how these things are, but hopefully not getting so overwhelmed by reality that we can't function. I think the key here is to find a balance between recognizing the way things are and how difficult things can be and how the world is working, and also seeing how it can change, which is very much that sextile to Uranus. Seeing how we can innovate and shift and bring transformation in our own lifetime with the help of Saturn and Neptune while dealing with the pressures of this really strong Pluto opposition. Um, Another interesting thing is the day that we have the full moon in Aquarius, which will be on the 8th, we also have Mercury stationing direct at 4 degrees. So there is a very strong Mercury retrograde story woven in, not like directly by degree, but in the ways in which, Mercury has been positioned each time we have experienced one of these events. Um, it does mean on the station day, there's going to be that revisiting of frustration, this feeling of things not working, the kind of tense feeling that we had on that Capricorn full moon, and that feeling of overwhelm that a lot of us experience is going to be revisited with the Aquarius full moon. The bright side with the Aquarius full moon is that we don't have the trine to Mars in the South Node. So I think this is a great, I know this, we're talking about the Leo new moon, but the Aquarius full moon is going to be a great moon for clearing and a great moon for release, because we're not quite as bound to things as we were the last time. So, buckle up, because it is going to be an intense full moon, but know that it is an opportunity to really get into what is actually going on and what needs to be done and how you can participate. Obviously, it's not going to be fixed right away. We're in a Mercury retrograde. It's not going to be easy. The path ahead is not going to be straight, but that desire and that passion for shifts and change can be harnessed until we meet it again in the energy of the full moon in Leo, which is going to happen in Aquarius season at the beginning of 2026. So just know that this is a tee off. And most lunations are, the moment and also the future and also the past. That's how all astrological things happen. They don't happen in a direct timeline, they happen on multiple planes of reality. So take in what you can take in, do what you can do, harness the magic. This is also an early degree lunar moment. So this is the starting of something, then moving through something to begin it. I think this is also a good time because we've had all of these, Leo personal planet retrogrades to really give yourself your roses for the values and the strengths and the passions that you have carried over the last 2 to 3 years, to see how you've grown and changed and how your heart has expanded and how you have truly committed to passion and desire and being who you are in whatever way that means to you. Um, but know that it's a lot of energy and Pluto oppositions are tough anyways, and having it magnified by the moon is going to really make this an emotional event. So just center yourself as much as you can. Do any type of heart groundings that you can do, thinking of loved ones, sitting within your body and listening to your heartbeat, counting your pulse, touching, feeling, to connect back into, putting your hand over your heart, connecting to your vitality and the pulse of your body. If you experience anxiety, nice deep breaths while feeling your heart rate slowly slow down. Just doing little simple things to kind of connect back in. And I think if you're going to harness this, new moon for spell work, it is about this expanded vision for the future. It's about believing in more than what is possible now, and knowing that when you come to the moment where you have to do something or participate or stand for something, this trust and faith in your heart, in what is happening with the Mercury retrograde. Something I posted on Threads was, it's not going to feel like it's working now, but speak from the heart. Um, Sometimes I think in Mercury retrogrades we tend to play it a little safe, but being like, well, no one's going to understand. No, they're not. But it doesn't matter. It's about flexing your voice and flexing the power of your expression and your desire. So when the time comes for you to be heard, you've already done the work to build up that muscle and resilience to truly speak from your heart and to communicate from your deepest and most loveliest intentions, and to not be afraid and trim them down and try to hide them. So yeah, it is a beautiful moment to really dig in. I will remind you that we are halfway through 2025 now, and that we're not going to see the other side of these transits, or at least of these transitions, until 2026. So this is not the end of anything. And this is not the beginning of everything. This is a continuation of that story. And this is a commitment to ourselves, to the journey that we are already on. So, yeah, I encourage you maybe to do less um, projecting manifesting work and more affirming, empowering work, being like, I can do anything. I believe in myself. I believe in a better world. I believe in equality. These types of expansive, encompassing affirmations, to not only expand our own world and our own minds, but to commit to expanding our neighborhoods and the world around us, and not just focusing on our little problems and trying to block out the world to hide from what is very hard and dark. And if you can hide from what's happening now, you have a huge amount of privilege, and it's important for you to activate that for others and to utilize what privilege you've probably gotten through violence from your ancestors to change the world and to reset the scale as much as you can within the context of the world that you live in, while honoring the people who are oppressed more than you and giving them their space and room to use their voice, and um, using whatever privilege you can to support them, but not speak for them. But yeah, that is this moon. We're going to move into the tarot, which I find to be interesting. It's a combination of a lot of things, and I pulled these cards ahead of time, so a lot of the stuff I'm talking about is very influenced by the cards that I see, and you'll see that as we move through it. So starting off, we have the King of Cups. This is about this expansive ocean of compassion and love and joy that can exist within the heart. Also, within the heart can exist pain and grief and frustration and struggle. And when we're dealing with the modern planets, this very sweeping energy, massive cycles, lifetimes, and multiple lifetimes within it. So to honor both the now and the self and the community, which is always keeping in mind that whether there is something else happening in Aquarius, which there is, Pluto, we are not just dealing with Leo, we are dealing with the opposition of Leo, which is this expansive collective energy that Aquarius holds, the kind of societal energy within Aquarius. But yeah, it's time to take ownership of our feelings and our actions. And I think accountability for some of us can be hard, especially if, maybe we're not directly the ones who need to be held accountable. But accountability is not scary. And accountability doesn't mean that you're taking on like the wrongdoing of multiple lifetimes. It just means that you are aware and you understand your position in the world and your, commitments and your responsibility to make it a better place as a citizen of the world, and as someone who may or may not have really oppressive, oppressive and violent ancestors like me. And if you don't, then this is about feeling into the ancestors who were oppressed and who were shoved down and forgotten. And if you have both, which in America we have a lot of people who have both, this is about holding that dichotomy. And the King of Cups is that maturity and that expansiveness to hold both, and to exist in pain and in joy, to understand that comfort isn't comfort unless it is predicated on the comfort and the happiness of all. That comfort is hiding if we don't understand that everyone deserves comfort and luxury and joy. So, King of Cups. It also, I think, indicates that we're in for a pretty big tidal wave of emotion for this new moon. Not a huge surprise, all things considered. It's very spicy. And that trine to Neptune and Saturn, where we come up against our restrictions and the ways in which we are limited when it comes to agency, and then Neptune coming in and being like, so those fantasies that existed before aren't really real. And also, you can use fantasy to progress, but at some point, you do have to look at space and time and reality as it is, and find a way to cope and survive within it without turning into the thing that you don't want to be. And saying that, we come to the Knight of Swords. There is a huge fear, I think, around this moment in time of what to do, how much to do, how little it seems possible, and what we can do for those in our own lives. And I know a lot of us are also dealing with financial constraints and struggles around like the mental load of what's going on top of the crush of late stage capitalism. And it can create this overwhelm, this Nine of Swords moment where it's not necessarily absolutely what is true, but it is the combination and the multiplication of all of our anxiety and fears around what's happening, added to by personal trauma and the ways in which our heart has been wounded by people who are supposed to care for us. And it's also a good reminder right now to recognize that Ceres, the asteroid that is about care and nurture, is also in Aries, right between Saturn and Neptune and Chiron. So it's kind of in this position of having to deal with really complex themes around how we have been failed and how we have not been supported and cared for. A lot to do with fathers who were not present, whether through tragedy or through personal choice. So hold the knowledge that you can feel all of your feelings and still expand and grow, and that there's no shame in feeling hopelessness. The only shame is when you let it get the better of you and then you decide to opt out and to activate whatever privilege you have to hide and to let other people suffer, which is just short-sighted because they'll come for you too eventually. But yeah, it does feel as though we're going to have a lot of overwhelm and fear around the future, and I encourage you to try to think about some positives about the future. Doesn't mean you have to be completely delusional. Doesn't mean you have to ignore the pain that you're in or the fears that you have, but to believe that things are possible, because we do have this sextile with Uranus where we don't know what's coming, and innovation does come at a cost, but there's a lot of possibility for newness and change. It just depends on how we harness it, which, if you know anything about the Uranus Gemini transit, it is about who harnesses the energy. And the energy has often been harnessed for war and progress through violence, just because there's so much energy in Gemini for possibility. And so people who want to take advantage, take advantage. Take advantage of the energy. Take advantage of Gemini and Uranus to believe something better, to infuse a world without war, to defund violence and arms dealers, and the fact that if you're from the US or any Western country, there's a massive arms deal, with other countries in order to maintain control. So remember that we have that power. Also remember that Pluto in Aquarius is trine Uranus. There is this really strong flow of communal change that is possible and aided by this energy. And we have the Wheel of Fortune, which to me is so Uranus and Gemini. It is anyone can play. And it's important that you play to weigh the energy to the side of peace, to weigh the energy to the side of innovation for the improvement of the human condition, rather than innovation for the stealing and the violence and all of those things. Also, I think if you have a hard decision coming up to make, I do think this is the moment to bet on yourself. If you don't play, you'll never know if you can win. Now, you may lose, but you might lose anyways. And technically, if you don't play, then you kind of lost by default. So definitely play. Put yourself out there. Believe in what you can do. I know in this time it can feel like um, ventures of, self-employment and stuff feel really shaky, but here's a little secret. It's all shaky. The quote unquote permanent employment is no longer permanent, and they can fire you whenever they feel like it. So bet on yourself this new moon. And you don't have to like jump off a cliff in this moment, but definitely start putting things in place to move yourself forward, to shift into a different mindset, to prepare yourself to function in an even more unstable world, and to believe in what you have and can do within the context of this, even though it can feel really hard. I'm a disabled person about to lose a lot of their health care, and I know a lot of us are. So, what do we have to lose, folks? I don't say that to be hopeless, but we're going to find more strength in marching to the beat of our own drum and in finding community and care than we are going to in typical standard society. The Wheel of Fortune is about change and happenstance and luck. And you're not going to know what that is going to bring if you continue to cling on to these systems and things that are set in place to destroy us. And if you have been benefiting, which I have before, it's because you have a really big chunk of privilege, even if you are disabled like me, even if you are queer like me. I was born white and I was born into a family with a lot of education, um, which they got access to because they kept other people out of access when we all could have just had it. So just recognize that now is the time to peel away from a belief in structures, believe in community, believe in your friends, believe in your own care for the universe, but release this need to have other people act for you, act from your own heart. And then we have this Page of Wands. And the pages have been coming up all over the place, and I do love this. This is about newness, and this is also, I know Saturn is old, but it feels very much like Saturn in the early degrees, this passion, this fire for change, this need for difference. It is the time to do things differently. This Saturn cycle is a detriment, well, not detriment, a fallen Saturn, because Saturn is exalted in Libra. It is a fallen Saturn. And so this is a time to do things differently and to become a fighter. And the Page of Wands is that kid who was always picking fights everywhere, but it's also really fun to be around. So, act on some impulse this new moon in Leo. Start investigating the things that you want to do. Don't wait on your dreams for the optimal moment. There is no optimal moment for your dreams. The only optimal moment is when you step into them and pursue them. And yes, it's scary, and yes, it can be hard, but it is worth it. And with how much uncertainty we live in, there is really no bonus in playing safe. And then we have the Seven of Pentacles. It's just a reminder that, things, while they're changing and shifting, we're also continuing a work. We're continuing a work that, in the very least, started in 2023 during the Venus retrograde in that summer. Um, if not, a much larger work. Also, a reminder after Leo season and after the Aquarius full moon, that's our last non-eclipse moon for the next two, well, three, because there's actually three moments. One of them is actually, let me retract. Let me retract. There is one non-eclipse, I think. Now I'm like, is it an eclipse? Let me check my notes. Y'all get to see me pulling out my notes. Okay. Okay, yeah. So we have one eclipse free Virgo new moon at 0 degrees, and it's so early that it's not under the influence of the nodes. So it's not the last one, but we head into eclipse season, and that Virgo 0 degree new moon has a lot to say about the eclipses, so it's not completely free of them. But this is a continuation of that work. This is a continuation because we're dealing with all of these um, moments, and also the Venus Mercury retrograde in Aries was at the earlier degrees of Aries, so we're pinging off similar degrees. This is a continuation of all of these works and threads. If you want to hear more about that and the Mercury retrograde and things, you can always go check out my Mercury retrograde video. But yeah, just know that we are continuing a work while also stepping into a new work. And you can do both, and don't feel bad if you feel trapped between two worlds, because that is kind of the vibe of 2023. And last but not least, this deck has the lunar phases, and this one is right in the middle. It's a reminder that we're halfway through 2025 and that we're in the middle of it. And sometimes the middle can feel really tense and tight and like there's no end in sight. But we're in the process of things, and we are moving through what is happening. And I have faith in all of us and our power and energy and our ability to care and to love and to change the world moment by moment, even when this feels like there's a lot of things against it. Anyways, my loves, that is my reading and a little bit of the astrology of this new moon. Harness it for the care and the passion of your own heart, and believe in a better future than seems possible in this moment. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in a different space.